the meeting where we went up to Helena and gave them our guidance plan. Went really well. They accepted it, and it was going to go to the governor's desk for approval. So there's no changes.
Wow.
And I think that Deb Hamill, the governor's chief of staff, actually wanted to get it to him for his flight to Ireland.
Yeah,
So
that's what she...
he had to read on the plane, so
Yeah.
he approved when we got it.
So he could sleep well. No, it went really well. So we got a good chance to introduce the whole council and give kind of a little history in your own. So I wanted him to know what a good council this is and how we have such varied expertise from all different corners. So it was kind of neat to be able to do that. And we talked a little bit about. It was interesting that the other item on the agenda was the changes to the Milltown Park that they're making. They're making a whole bunch of different changes down there. So we got to kind of juxtapose Milltown's putting in a parking lot and river access to our paratailing. So yeah, it was kind of.
When are we going to do Milltown Dam and View?
Yeah. So it was kind of a. We talked a little bit about still keeping blue bones around in the middle of our town. So it went well. I thought it was a nice contrast. So it went well. Anything else you?
I really do think that the TRC is impressed with this committee, and I think they were pretty impressed with the document in that they didn't suggest one change. And these guys are chiefs of departments, and they know their stuff. So to have them look at your product and give it the thumbs up without an ounce of red ink on it to me was very.
Multiple people saying what a good document was, and that they appreciated our hard work. So it was good. Yeah, it went well.
You know who wrote it?
Yeah, I was going to say, wait, you guys wrote
And that was one other thing I brought up at the meeting is, that we had 20 plus meetings up till now, done basically 2 years of education. And I went back and looked, and 7 of our meetings were on the guidance document. So that, I thought that was pretty impressive. And that was just the ones where it was the headliner, not the ones that, we talked about it and then moved on to something else. So we spent a lot of time on it, and I think we put a lot of thought into it. And that was that. You want to do the TV?
No, you should.
Okay. We met with, and some of you guys were there, we met with TU at is that their monthly meeting?
I'm not sure how often.
I'm not sure either. They were interested in, Pat gave them his history on Butte Water at the confluence, and nicely done. I thought it turned out really well. He had some different slides and a few more things in there, I thought, from when we saw it.
One thing that I thought was interesting is the gentleman who was the professional for TU for the Upper Clark Fork was in the audience, and he resides in Tura, but does most of his work out of Missoula. And they're looking at doing some stuff on the Upper Clark Fork. And when we talked about the issues we have here, like the parrot, and I did flash up the slide to show the parrot water compared to Berkeley compared to the drinking water standard. I mean, that guy took notice. He's like, wow.
Yeah,
You guys are really
took
I thought the
dealing with some
7
real
smelters part of it really made a impact. Yeah, it was, Larry was also there, and Helen and I, and Pat.
I did get a text from Steve that he was still at work, right? I think I felt my pocket ringing during the meetings.
Okay. So we had good attendance, passed out the forms, talked a little bit about this fund and what could be, what kind of projects could be proposed, and that we were looking for different ideas. they took the forms and said they needed to talk. So hopefully, you know, we'll get some interest there. And I think it was really good in that it, I didn't catch that. Who's the Missoula guys? What's his name? Do you remember?
Casey Hacklethorne.
Which guy was he?
He was at the far end of the table.
Next
Okay.
to
Yeah.
Olson's wife? Is that right?
No, the other end.
The other end?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He
Who was
at
the
end.
guy that was,
Yeah.
seemed more knowledgeable about the parrot and that sort of thing?
I don't know that gentleman's name.
He knew a lot.
He
Yeah.
did. Yeah, he was asking really good questions.
Yeah.
And Helen, what did you tell me before? What did you think?
Oh, there was just a perception from that group that this money was spent,
Yeah.
that the county would get the whole thing.
Really?
And
so
that,
we spent a lot of time saying
We
that.
couldn't
Yeah.
quite get
I
it
can only
through them
speak
that
for myself, but that's.
We've got money, we're looking for projects, and I think we did by the time of that.
I think that was the number one thing that came out of it. Because they really did, well, what do you want from us, this money? It sounded to us, we were at that meeting, it sounded like the county's plan would go forward. And, you know, so,
We're so used to get rolled over. I mean, people just expect that
Right.
we already have, there's already an agenda that's guiding us.
Yeah, they did kind of say that, like, you know, if we can take the time to do this, but we will never get our idea through.
yeah.
Sad.
Yeah,
True.
yeah, I thought that was a reason for going. To me,
Yeah.
you know, that really was, especially if that perception was out there, with more than
In
that.
other groups.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Other
With
citizens.
more than that group, so.
So it provided them something to grab a hold of in terms of what their organizational objectives are relative to what we're trying to do. They have ideas.
Yeah. And I had probably 10 copies of the grid prioritization plan. They took every one of them. They asked for a copy of the Silverville Creek watershed restoration plan. And I do have one copy, I'll give it to Bob Olson. And then I do have a copy of the Blacktail Creek plan. Did you guys see that? It was something that Pioneer did after the Silverville Creek plan. And it really took a little bit closer look at Blacktail.
I don't think we have seen that.
It wasn't a plan, it's just an evaluation.
Well, yeah,
It's an assessment.
Right.
Okay.
I was like, it's really nice.
What were the conclusions? Was it mostly sedimentation issues? Was it mostly?
You know, they rated the stream from like 0 to 130. I think 130 was like optimum spawning habitat for West Slope cutthroat. And I think they broke the creek into like maybe half a dozen different segments. And the average of them was probably around 90, meaning that there's a lot of good opportunity there. So, I mean, it was fairly promising. The few drawbacks are that Blacktail Creek runs through a lot of private property, like 70 different landowners in Blacktail Creek. And you can't really police those private people that have, you know, property on the stream bed. So that was one of the drawbacks, but I mean, it looked like there's real potential there. So that's a good report. I'll get you guys a copy of that.
How about the assessment that was done on Browns Gulch? Is that done, or is that?
That was more of trying to keep water in the lower segment of Browns Gulch. And Browns Gulch stream is a lot like Reese Canyon, where it comes off the East Ridge and actually hits the alluvium. It goes to ground. It doesn't stay on the surface. And Browns Gulch is kind of the same way. It's, you know, you get to the bottom of the floodplain and it really fans out. You got a lot of alluvium, a lot of water wants to go to ground. But there is one ranch there that does a lot of irrigating, and this was an assessment of their operation and how could we improve their operation and leave water in the stream. And we actually looked at paying them cash to not irrigate, to leave the water in the creek, and they said, no, we need the hay, so we need the water. So we weren't able to work an amenable deal between us, but I think there's still a lot of potential there for other ways to get them water, whether it's metro sewer, effluent that goes right by their property to irrigate the sod farm out of the Tiffin. You know, there's lots of different options some point in the future, we'll sit at the table with them again and try and get more water in Browns Gulch. And the same thing at the Browns Gulch though is from the base all the way up to the top, it's one ranch after another, and those people have water rights, and if the guy at the bottom doesn't use them, then the next guy can use them, and so and the stream does have a lot of potential.
That's, you know, Joe's, wasn't it Joe's, the fish, when they were tagging the fish, they were seeing them
Yeah.
move up Browns Gulch, from German
Yeah.
Gulch to Browns Gulch, and kind of back and forth, and more activity in
Yeah.
Browns Gulch than they ever expected.
Yeah, a lot of potential.
So,
And there was one landowner that actually found pearl shell mussels in the stream, and the biologist told me, he said, oh yeah, that's one of the top 10 streams for mussels in the state.
yeah.
Oh,
So he said, but don't tell him, but,
Yeah.
so he didn't hear that.
So you didn't say that in public meetings.
Yeah.
Erase that part.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually talked to that guy, he
Yeah.
did a talk at AWW.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Pretty
these mussels
interesting.
were like, I mean, they're like ones you'd find.
Significant
Yeah.
Yeah.
size. Big
And
one.
really pretty rare
Yeah.
to find inland, or isn't that what he was
Well,
talking, or
I
or
think
just-
they're more rare now just because of,
the damage to?
yeah, but I think, you know, the Mussel Shell River is the Mussel Shell River because a lot of mussels there.
Because Indians live there. All right. If there's no other questions on that one, we will go ahead on to the ideas on the public scoping. Maybe Pat, could you give us an update of where we're at first, and then I'll-
Sure. Well, we do, as you guys know, we do have the 2 workshops ready. On the 14th, Wednesday, we'll be at what used to be the War Bonds down at Quality Inn. And then on the 20th, which is the next Tuesday, we'll be at our archives on Court Street. And I would like to get commitments to get at least 3 council members at each meeting, so.
I'll be there on the 20th for sure.
Okay.
The
You're out of
14th
town.
might be a little more difficult, but I'm going to try.
I'll be both.
We'll be there on the 14th, but not the 20th.
Okay, so Emmett for the 14th, Chad for the 14th, John for the 20th, Chad for the 20th.
Elizabeth for the 20th.
I'll come to both.
Make sure.
Okay, and one thing that
And Larry told me to tell you he's gonna try for the 20th, but he couldn't make the 14th.
one thing that I think will be important when we're going to the public with this plan, asking them for ideas. I'm paid staff. In many people's eyes, I'm a bureaucrat, so I think it would be much more, I guess, open if you guys did some of the talking. And that's the way we've got the presentation. We've got a PowerPoint ready to go, and I think it's like maybe a 10 or 15-minute presentation. Carol is going to do the legal aspects. I'll do kind of the background, but then I think somebody from the council should say, this is who we are and this is what we want from you guys. And that's I think, a much better gesture than it coming from somebody that's paid.
And Carol kind of handed me a tentative agenda for it as we were walking out the door. And they actually had one of us on there to describe the mission and schedule 10-15 minutes right off the top. And then NRDP staff for 10 minutes, and then then kind of turn it over to the public for questions, and maybe a work session to
Yep.
show them how to fill out the forms and that kind of stuff. So.
And I know you guys did want to have a big display board with the sample form all filled out, you know, something like that. And I think they were a ridiculous cost and a lot of lead time. So instead of that, we just have a PowerPoint. We're just going to put it up on the screen. So, I'll get